This session is slightly intriguing because when you say bottom of the pyramid, we're looking at the entire ecosystem of human population. So, if you look at the total underbanked and underserved, which is the out of the 4.5 billion, 2.5 billion is about the bottom of the pyramid, and in India it's about 253 million. And in a developed country like the United States, it's about 60 million. And these are the underserved and the underbanked. Now, what is unique about the underbanked? Before I get in there, I'd like to talk a bit about the top of the pyramid. What is the top of the pyramid cycle is? Like, for example, what they have is a total support of a fully banked financial infrastructure. So they have a regular income, and they can get funded for any emergencies, or they get funded by financial services products. And because of that, they have a better income, better investment strategies, and it feeds into the whole life cycle. It makes them more secure. If you look at the bottom of the pyramid, unlike the top of the pyramid, they have a slightly unique structure where they have a non-regular income, and that increases the borrowing nature of their needs, and that includes a higher default rate, and that actually makes them less creditworthy, and that feeds into the having more need, and that's like a vicious cycle. Now, if you add a life event, for example, if there is a disaster in the family, an earthquake, or any of those, imagine that life cycle will become more topsy-turvy. What you're looking at is the bottom of the pyramid have a livelihood problem, which what they're looking for is how can I meet my needs on a day-to-day basis, whereas a traditional banking infrastructure would not help me. I was always looking at why can't a traditional banking infrastructure would help the underserved, right? Because the barriers that the traditional banking infrastructure would have are things like KYC. They depend on, if you want to borrow money, they won't have collateral. So you need to have something to get something. And to do that, they have created an entire fortress or a wall for which the underserved cannot penetrate. What they are doing is the underserved are actually going after the unbanked, the non-banking financial infrastructure, which will have a higher transaction cost. For example, that's what we looked at, the borrowing and things like that. And they have higher service cost. That's what they want, and that's what the traditional banking sector would not give them, and that's where the tussle is. What we're looking at is, if you want to get into the underbanked or the bottom of the pyramid, we want to create a solve for that. What we need is a non-traditional thinking mechanism. So if you look at platform approach, long back when I was at PayPal, we wanted to reset the whole infrastructure around 2007, and we did some kind of analysis. How would I create an environment? I looked at history of why do we need a platform? So there was a research paper done by a bunch of analysts that looked at the space exploration. Why can't we launch a spacecraft all the way up into the moon, near to the moon? Because they need boosters. Boosters would take a payload to a certain level, and from there on, the payload is pushed into the gravity, to the gravitational force, and it goes to these orbits. Why can't we have a larger larger set of boosters, so that we can go all the way up to the moon? For several decades, NASA is limited by the design of having a limited capabilities in the booster mechanism. What we found out was boosters need to be prepared in a faraway place and should be transported to the place where the liftoff is, like the Cape Canaveral or these systems which are far away. So these need to be transported through rails, like the buses or trucks, like there is a whole system that transports these boosters, and they need to pass through these bridges. The bridges are designed for normal train systems, and the boosters are so big that you can only design so that they can go through those tunnels. And why are these bridges only this far? Because the railway tracks are this far, and they design such a way that the train systems go into it. You can't double the size of the train system because they are not needed. And the bridges are the limitation there, right? Why are the train systems like a meter long or meter gauge? That's because the horse carriages, which were the original means of transportation, had these carriages designed such a way that they were actually transferred from horse carriages onto the train. So what people felt was the carriages are designed in such a way that they are put on these railway tracks, and they have taken from one destination to another. So the carriages which are horse-drawn, which are are the limitation which design the railway track. Why are these horse carriages only so much wide? Why can't they become so big? That's because the distance between the backs of two horses is about a meter long. So that's what it is. So where I'm coming down here is entire humanity's space exploration was limited by the distance between two horsebacks for several decades, by the way. So when you design a platform, one of the key things that you look at is, what are my fundamental assumptions? How can I challenge them when I am going after a new opportunity, like, for example, going out to the bottom of the pyramid? So one of the first things that you need to look at is, how can I challenge the existing setup? How can I design something? If I'm designing a financial service solution to the bottom of the pyramid, you cannot plug in what is being offered for the top of the pyramid and offer it. Like, for example, I can't offer a loan solution which has 10,000 KYC steps to the underbanked. It does not work. You need to challenge the status quo when you're going after this huge market segment. You need to solve a problem, because if you go to a banking solution, if you want to open a bank account, they'll give you a slew of products. They give you a credit card, a debit card, they give you a loan application, there's a slew of products. If you sell the same set of solutions to the underbanked, they may not understand what they need. They need a loan, they need an insurance, they need something which need to be very specific. Solve a problem for them. And need to localize. So what happens probably in a region might not really be appealing to the rest of the region. Because if you take a banking solution, like go to a national bank, they have one slew of application that can be applied all over. Whereas in a localized environment, what you could see is it's very different. And I saw it firsthand. Like what is applicable for example, in Andhra, for example, in local sector of fisheries, may not be really appealing to what is needed somewhere in the north. Focus on the business model. Transaction cost is very important. You need to have service cost, which is very important, as I said. Now, what is your solution, right? Your solution should be more delighting your customer. I think your previous speaker here talked about design, contextual design. Why, what problem am I solving? It becomes more and more important. And before I get deep into, so I have two of the speakers who are next to me who talk about how building a massively scalable architecture like Aadhaar, ground up, is actually built on the APIs and services model, and how a design thinking approach, like using MoneyTap as an application, solve that problem. And what I'm looking at is infrastructure is one, and application is on top. Oops. So this is a typical approach which I would take if you want to design solving the problem for underserved, is go after a simple solution. Solve a problem like, for example, lending is one application you're looking at. and you build a scalable model. You have other plug and play architecture, like you have Google Maps and you have web services, whatever you need. But everything should be reusable. And you need to build other applications once you have one. Solve one problem, but add as you mature as an environment. And I see that this methodology being applied in companies like Uber, Amazon, PayPal, and where we build like a scalable architecture and build applications on top which are reusable.